everyone, and welcome back to Anne's Family Recipe. Today I am sharing 2 epic Thanksgiving dessert recipes that have no pumpkin in sight. Now, to be honest, I actually love a good pumpkin dessert, but I know not everybody does. So today I'm making a pretzel apple cream cheese delight. It's so good. And then, not to be outdone, I am making Snickerdoodle Cobbler. Just you wait. If you like cinnamon and sugar, you are going to love this dessert. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get cooking. Okay, so first up is the apple cinnamon pretzel salad, which might sound like an unusual combination, but there is a very common dessert in the Pittsburgh area where I live. It is a strawberry pretzel jello salad. So it's strawberries in like a strawberry jello with a pretzel crust and a sweet cream cheese layer in between. It's so good, and I thought this would be sort of a fall version of that. And it exceeded my expectations. This is a really yummy dessert. So I started with 5 green apples. The recipe called for 4, but mine were quite small, so I decided to do 5. And I washed and peeled them and diced them up into little pieces. Then in a medium saucepan on the stove, I added 1.5 cups of water, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. I whisked this all together and then brought it to a boil over about medium heat. Then I just kept stirring the sauce for a few minutes until it thickened up. Next, I added in the diced apples and stirred them in so that they were coated in the sauce, and then I let them cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. For the pretzel crust, I put 2 heaping cups of salted pretzel twists in my food processor, along with 1/4 cup of brown sugar. The recipe calls for white sugar, but I like to use the brown sugar when I make that strawberry pretzel jello salad. It just adds a little bit more of a, I don't know, caramely toffee-like flavor to the pretzel mixture. I just love it. So I crushed all the pretzels up with the brown sugar first, and then I added in 1/2 cup, which is 1 stick of melted unsalted butter. When everything was combined, I pressed the crust into the bottom of a 13 by 9 inch glass baking dish. The original recipe did say that you could reserve some of the crumbs to sprinkle on top of the dessert, but I felt like I needed all of the mixture to make a thick enough crust that it would coat the bottom of my pan. But if you want to make a little extra to use as a topping, go right ahead. This crust bakes at 350 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes, and then you allow it to cool completely. I actually made the crust and the apple mixture the night before I was serving this dessert. So I put the apple mixture into a Tupperware and just kept that in the refrigerator, and I allowed the crust to cool completely and just covered it with some plastic wrap on the countertop overnight. The next day, I made the cream cheese filling. So this starts with 1 brick of cream cheese, which is 8 ounces at room temperature, and then you whip that up a little bit with your electric hand mixer. Then to that, you add 1 cup of powdered sugar and combine that, and then 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and whip that in. Lastly, you use 8 ounces or 1 small container of frozen whip topping or Cool Whip. You make sure that's defrosted, and then you can mix that in so everything's combined. Next, I spread this cream cheese mixture in an even layer over top of the cooled crust. I mentioned I made the apple mixture the night before, and you can see once it's refrigerated, it gets a slightly gelatinous texture to that, but do not worry. I popped this in the microwave for about a minute and stirred it up just to thin it out again, and once you spread it in a thin layer over top of the cream cheese, that texture changes slightly. It's not quite as jello-y, gloppy, if you will. It's a little bit smoother and just makes a really nice topping that tastes exactly like apple pie filling. It is really, really good. So for me, the best part of this dessert is that pretzel crust because you're combining the salty with the sweet. The creamy filling has a great texture, but it's not overly sweet. And then that apple pie-like topping just gives you that quintessential cinnamony apple fall flavor. It is so good. I just wanted to mention that I have made many a non-pumpkin dessert over the years here on my channel, particularly with Thanksgiving in mind. I'm going to leave a bunch of recipes linked for you in my description box below. I have made pecan cream pie, I've made pecan pie bars, a gingerbread pie that was very unique and delicious. My mom's chocolate chip cookie pie is absolutely incredible and so easy. There is a lot for you to check out after you watch this video. But for now, let me show you this Snickerdoodle Cobbler. I started with 1/3 cup of unsalted butter, and it needs to be melted, so I just put it right into my 13 by 9 inch glass baking dish and popped it into the oven as it preheated to 350 degrees. And actually, this made it a little bit toasty, kind of like brown butter, so I think that really enhanced the flavor. So in a separate mixing bowl, I added 3/4 of a cup of milk, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1.5 cups of sugar. Get ready for a lot of sugar in this recipe. It's a sweet one. And then I whisked that all together. Next, I added in 1.5 cups of flour, 2¼ teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And then I whisked that in, so I had kind of like a cinnamony, sugary batter. So here is that beautiful toasty melted butter straight out of the oven. So be very careful if you use this method that you don't burn yourself on the glass pan. But next you're supposed to spoon the batter on top of the hot butter. So I did that. I ended up kind of just pouring it all over the top, but you just don't want to mix it into the butter. Next, I sprinkled 1.5 cups of brown sugar on top of the batter. And then before this bakes, you pour 1.5 cups of hot water all over the top, which is very unusual, but what's gonna happen is the cake is gonna bake underneath and rise up and make this crusty top, and then the water and the brown sugar are gonna make a gooey, kind of caramely sauce at the bottom. The texture of this dessert is really interesting, and it just tastes phenomenal. So to really hammer home that Snickerdoodle flavor, you're gonna mix together some cinnamon and sugar. I did 1/4 cup of sugar and 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, but I only ended up using about half of this mixture because it really was too much. But you sprinkle that all over the top for this extra cinnamon sugar crust. So as you serve this dessert, you have to crack through that crunchy cinnamon sugar crust. Then you have the fluffy cake with this gooey sauce underneath. You can serve this with some homemade fresh whipped cream. I don't even know if you need to add any powdered sugar to it. You could, but you don't have to because obviously the dessert is already pretty sweet. But we used some vanilla bean ice cream and it was the perfect combination. So if you're not a fan of pumpkin, but you still have a sweet tooth this Thanksgiving, give one of these recipes a try. Thank you so much for joining me here today in my kitchen, and I'll see you again soon.